Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something really fascinating. We're looking at source material that spans, over 1,000 years?
At least.
And we're connecting two figures who, on the surface might seem totally unrelated.
That's right. We're looking at Samson and John the Baptist, based on the readings in Judges 13 and Luke chapter 1. And it's more than just comparing two old stories. We're really trying to get into a specific divine pattern, a kind of management technique, you could say?
A management technique, I like that.
Yeah, how these prophetic leaders, these people who are destined to be sort of foundation layers for history, are set apart. And it's often through these really severe restrictive vows and these long, difficult periods of just waiting.
Exactly. So our mission today is to see how these two parallel divine announcements, both given to parents who had basically given up all hope of having kids, how they establish these foundational restrictions that set their sons on a completely unique path.
Right.
What does this level of prophetic preparation, from the womb actually tell us about living a life on purpose?
Well, the thing that stands out right away is that both of them were essentially designated as beginners.
Beginners, okay.
Samson was destined to begin the physical and political deliverance of Israel from the Philistines, not finish it, just begin it.
And John the Baptist?
His whole role was to prepare the way, to make the people fit for the Lord's arrival. So you see, neither of them were the main event.
Right, but they were indispensable.
Absolutely. Without their preparation, the main event couldn't have happened the way it did. They were, purpose-built for these preparatory roles, and that purpose was sealed with vows from the moment of conception.
Okay, so let's start with the older blueprint. We're in Judges 13. We're in the time of the Judges, which is a pretty chaotic, cyclical period in Israel's history. And we meet a man named Manoah.
And we immediately hit that familiar narrative setup.
His wife was barren.
Exactly. And that's not just a throwaway detail. It's crucial. It immediately discredits any kind of natural explanation for what's about to happen. This birth is going to be a miracle.
It underscores that the child's destiny is entirely from God. It's not, a natural inheritance.
It's a gift. And then the narrative really emphasizes the weight of this moment because the angel of the Lord appears first to the women.
Which is an interesting detail in itself.
It is. And he tells her point blank, you're going to conceive and bear a son. But the announcement is immediately tied to these very specific conditions.
A kind of threefold consecration, right?
Yeah, and this is a key technical nugget we really have to focus on. These rules weren't just random. They were the foundation of the Nazirite vow.
Ah, the Nazirite vow. That's the critical term here. This was a radical, very public, very visible declaration of being separated for God.
Yeah.
So what were the specific rules for Samson?
Well, the first two restrictions were for the mother during the pregnancy. First, she was to take no wine or strong drink, a restriction of, pleasure and a focus on purity.
Correct.
And second, she couldn't eat anything unclean, so in a way, she was modeling the discipline required for her son before he was even born.
And then the third one, the most famous one, was for Samson himself.
No razor shall ever touch his head.
Right.
And that specific vow, which he takes from the womb until his death, was the visible sign of his consecration. And this is so important. The length of his hair wasn't the source of his strength.
It was a sign of his dedication.
Exactly. And his dedication was the source of his strength. So when that visible sign was broken, the dedication was gone, and so was the strength.
And the reason for this incredibly stringent lifelong commitment, the sources are clear. He is the one who will begin the deliverance of Israel from the power of the Philistines.
Again, that word begin, it's just the start.
The difficult, necessary opening chapter.
Right. It's like the starting gun for this multi-generational process. And you have to appreciate the sheer power of this moment. Manoah's wife described the visitor as having the appearance of an angel of God, terrible indeed.
Terrible indeed. That doesn't sound very comforting.
No, this wasn't a gentle, comforting presence. This was a terrifying, authoritative force demanding immediate and uncompromising obedience to this vow. It really underscores that the prep for a great work is never casual.
It's filled with awe and demand. Okay, so let's take that entire blueprint, barren parents, divine messenger, restrictive vow, and jump forward centuries to the New Testament echo in Luke chapter 1.
It's such a clear echo. We go from the chaos of the judges to the very structured time of King Herod. And we meet Zechariah, a priest, and his wife, Elizabeth.
And they were both righteous, observant.
But just like Samson's parents, childless and, as the text says, advanced in years, The structural parallel is just unmistakable. It's an impossible situation that demands a divine solution.
The setting for the announcement is so different, though, and I think that really emphasizes the shift in focus. Zechariah is not out in a field.
No, he's in the holiest place he can possibly be. He's performing his sacred duty, chosen by Lot to enter the sanctuary to burn incense.
And right there, at the altar of incense, the angel appears. And this time we get a name.
We do. It's Gabriel who stands before God. And he delivers the news. Elizabeth will have a son, and they'll name him John. And again, the consecration directly mirrors that Nazarite code.
Yes, the first vow is a direct, audible echo, isn't it? John will drink neither wine nor strong drink.
It's the core restriction. It physically separates him from the common life of his time. But this is where the preparation gets, I'd say, radically elevated.
How so?
Well, Samson's vow was all centered on a physical symbol, his hair tied to his task of physical deliverance. John's consecration is entirely spiritual.
Right, he'll be filled with the Holy Spirit from his mother's womb.
Even from his mother's womb. And he'll be great in the sight of the Lord. The discipline is similar, but the power source and the mission are on a whole different level.
So John's mission is explicit. He'll go before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah. He's preparing a people-turning hearts, changing minds for a spiritual kingdom, not a political one.
It really shows an evolution in the divine plan, you know? Samson's preparation was for a physical feat, a human effort aided by God. John's preparation was for a purely spiritual office, one that was totally dependent on being filled with the Spirit from the absolute earliest moment.
And this is where this story, I think, becomes so humanly compelling.
Yeah.
We move from Manoah and his wife, who responded with awe and a kind of cautious obedience,
to Zechariah, who just perfectly embodies human skepticism.
He was troubled, the text says, but the angel tells him not to be afraid, that his prayers have been heard. But he just can't get there. He asks that ultimate question of doubt.
How shall I know this? For I am an old man and my wife is advanced in years.
I mean, he has the direct word of an angel from God standing in the Holy of Holies, and he still asks for a sign. He's basing his belief on his own physical reality.
And that's the central human failure right there.
So why do you think his doubt results in such an immediate physical consequence, being struck mute? Well, Manoah's questions just got him, demonstration of power.
Well, I think it's about context. Zechariah was a priest, standing in the most sacred space, performing the most sacred duty. His failure wasn't just, average human weakness. It was a failure of priestly trust at the moment of ultimate revelation. Gabriel, who says, I stand before God, couldn't have his authority questioned in that moment, in that place. The consequence had to be immediate, physical, and highly symbolic.
His ability to speak his own truth was taken away.
Until God's truth was made real, yeah.
Can you just imagine that? Being given the most important news of your life, the answer to decades of prayer, and then being silenced for 9 months.
That forced silence must have completely reframed his entire understanding of trust and patience. He was just forced to wait and witness. Silently.
And the people outside, they get it immediately. They realize he's seen a vision when he comes out, and he can't speak, he's just gesturing.
So his silence becomes this huge shared part of the waiting period for the whole community. It's a public sign that something big is happening.
Then you have Elizabeth's reaction. After she conceives, she goes into seclusion for 5 months. And the text says she did this because the Lord had taken away her disgrace before others. That feels like a really crucial detail for understanding the human side of all this.
Oh, absolutely. In that culture, being barren wasn't just a private sadness. It was a public shame, a social disgrace. People often saw it as a sign of divine displeasure.
So her seclusion was what, a protective measure?
I think so. It let her process and experience this miracle privately. It was the Lord, through her, sort of taking control of the narrative, shielding her from the initial disbelief or gossip, making sure the focus stayed on the miracle, not on the social stigma that was being lifted.
So all this waiting, Zechariah's silence, Elizabeth's seclusion, it becomes this huge unifying factor in the story, doesn't it?
It does. It bridges everything. You've got these two figures, Samson and John, defined by strict vows, and you have two sets of parents defined by miraculous intervention and these really intense periods of forced patience.
Okay, so this is where we can really start synthesizing the nuggets.
Let's do it. So you have these two figures, both destined for these foundational preparatory roles, both marked by incredibly restrictive vows, no wine, no strong drink, and these miraculous births to parents who are well past the point of hope.
The technical parallel in the vows is just undeniable. It signals a commitment that separates them from the ordinary flow of society. It's a physical sign of a spiritual destiny.
But, and this is the key difference again, the discipline serves different ends. Samson's entire Nazirite vow was about physical separation to power physical action. He was beginning a political struggle.
But John's vow.
John's modified vow was about total spiritual preparation for the Lord's immediate presence. Both involve sacrifice, but John's is a kind of purified form of dedication. It foreshadows the need for spiritual separation in the new covenant.
These stories, at the end of the day, really hinge on this profound foundational dependence. And the source material gave us a perfect reflection on this from Psalm 71.
It really reinforces that theme of total reliance, doesn't it?
It does. The psalmist says, "On you I depend from birth. From my mother's womb you are my strength."
That is the spiritual state of both Samson and John the Baptist. I mean, their destinies were sealed before they even drew breath. And the proper human response to that kind of predestined strength is this commitment to proclaim God's wondrous deeds. It's an immediate mandate for a life of testimony.
So here's the central transferable lesson that the reflection notes really draw out for us.
Yes.
It's the discipline of waiting.
Yes.
It points out that God works faithfully, perfectly, even when his plans unfold, slowly and quietly. Or in ways that seem like detours, like Zechariah being struck mute.
Zechariah's doubt is the perfect human foil. It highlights our own innate desire for immediate, tangible proof. But even with his failure of trust, God remains patient. The ultimate promise isn't derailed.
It just forces Zechariah, and by extension, into this period of, uncomfortable forced dependence.
Yeah, and the reflection really emphasizes that this silence, this waiting, these apparent delays, they're not empty time. They're often part of God's loving design.
They force the core lesson on us.
Which is trusting that God is at work behind the scenes, that he's managing the timing and the details, even when we don't understand the methods or the reason for the delay. It's the refining time.
The refining time, I like that.
It's the period where the really dramatic promise is allowed to quietly mature in a protected space. It ensures that when the fulfillment finally arrives, it's undeniable, and everyone involved has been conditioned to recognize it as a purely divine act.
And to tie this long history of meticulous preparation back to a sense of immediate hope, the reflection sources brought up that powerful Advent cry.
Right. "O root of Jesse's stem, come to save us without delay."
And that phrase just connects everything. It connects the centuries of painstaking preparation, the vows, the conceptions, the waiting, to this profound anticipation of fulfillment.
Exactly. It reminds us that every single step, every restriction, every moment of silence was part of a meticulously managed, non-casual plan leading directly to salvation. No life serving a divine purpose is unplanned. It's prepared with a specific, tailored discipline.
What an incredible comparison. These two preparatory figures, Samson and John, separated by 1,000 years, both show us that divine preparation almost always involves strict, often painful discipline, miraculous intervention, and a huge dose of patient waiting.
It's a powerful lesson in trusting the timing and the methods, even when they involve long periods of silence or, require us to move beyond our own flawed understanding.
It really forces you to ask whether you're willing to embrace that discipline of waiting when the answer to your prayer or the fulfillment of a promise just doesn't arrive on your schedule.
That's the question.
So we'll leave you with the reflective question that builds directly on the source material we analyzed today for you to consider. What area of my life today needs deeper trust in God's timing rather than reliance on my own understanding?